She'd pushed me back against the unfinished wall like she was testing the studs, palm flat on my chest, eyes narrowed in concentration. It wasn't sexual. Not really. But it wasn't not something either. The sentence lodged itself somewhere it didn't belong and never quite left. I'd been hired to fix the back room of her place. Technically, it was a bookstore, though half the shelves were empty and the smell was more dust than paper. She said she wanted to turn the storage area into a small reading space. Quiet. Solid. Something that lasts, she told me on the phone. Her voice had been calm, practiced, like she was used to being listened to. When I arrived that first morning, rain was coming down sideways. I tracked water in despite wiping my boots twice. She noticed, but didn't say anything. Just slid an old towel toward me with her foot. It felt deliberate, like she was giving me permission to exist there. She was taller than I expected. Not tall exactly, just grounded. Mid-40s, maybe older. Dark hair pulled back with no fuss. No makeup that I could see. She wore a loose sweater with paint flecks on the sleeves, like she'd tried to scrub them out and failed. I noticed everything and pretended I didn't. "I'm Mara," she said, holding out her hand. Her grip was firm. Not testing. Certain. The back room was cold, unfinished drywall stacked against one wall, exposed beams overhead. My kind of space. Honest. I set my bag down and started measuring without filling the silence. She watched from the doorway, arms crossed, head tilted slightly, like she was listening to something else entirely. "You're young," she said after a while. I nodded. "I get that a lot." She smiled, just briefly. "Doesn't mean you're not good." That should have been enough. A normal compliment. But something about the way she said it made my hands feel clumsy. I dropped my pencil, bent to pick it up, stood too fast. We worked around each other carefully. When I needed her to hold a board, she stepped in without hesitation, fingers close to mine, but not touching. When they did brush, it was an accident. We both pretended not to notice. The room felt too quiet after that, like the walls were listening. The moment happened when I asked her to check the alignment. She stepped closer than necessary, leaned in, pressed her hand flat to the wall beside my shoulder. She wasn't looking at me. She was looking past me, at the grain, the level, the join. "Prove you're good with wood," she said, almost to herself. I laughed. She glanced at me then, eyebrow raised. "What?" "Nothing," I said. "Just give me a minute." She didn't move right away. Her hand stayed where it was. I could feel the heat from it through my shirt. When she finally stepped back, she cleared her throat like she'd forgotten how to speak for a second. Later, she brought me coffee. It was already cold by the time I noticed. I drank it anyway. That night, lying in my apartment with sawdust still under my nails, I kept seeing her hand against the wall. Not the words. The pause. The way neither of us rushed to fix it. I told myself it was nothing. But the next morning, I showed up early. The second day stretched longer than it needed to. I arrived before she unlocked the front door. The rain was gone, replaced by that flat gray light that makes everything feel unfinished. I stood there with my hands in my jacket pockets, listening to the quiet hum of the street, telling myself I was just early because I liked being early. She noticed. "You don't have to wait out here," she said once she let me in. Her voice was polite, careful, like she'd adjusted something overnight. I shrugged. Didn't mind. She nodded, already turning away, keys clinking as she set them down. Today she wore a different sweater. Thinner. The cuffs were stretched, the sleeves pushed up like she'd tried to roll them, but given up. I noticed the faint tremor in her hands when she poured herself coffee. She didn't offer me any this time. We worked mostly in silence. She stayed busy in the front, sorting books that didn't look like they'd be sold anytime soon. Every so often I heard a soft exhale, like she was counting something under her breath. I kept my focus on the frame, on the way the wood responded when I pressed too hard. It's easier when materials make sense. At some point, she came back and leaned against the doorframe. "How long will it take?" she asked. "Another day or two. Depends." "On." I hesitated. "If you want it done right." Her mouth twitched, almost a smile. "Almost. I always want things done right." She stepped into the room, closer than before, but not crossing whatever line she'd drawn. Her arms folded, then unfolded again like she couldn't get comfortable. The quiet thickened. I could hear the ticking of the old clock out front, faint but steady. I used to do this myself, she said suddenly. Carpentry. She shook her head. Fixing things. Or trying to. A pause. My hands aren't what they used to be. I looked at them then. Really looked. Long fingers. Small scar near her thumb. Pale and old. They were capable hands. Tired, maybe. Not weak. They look fine to me, I said. She laughed softly, surprised, like she hadn't expected that. It didn't last. Her shoulders lowered a fraction after, like she'd let something slip and wanted it back. We stood there, neither of us moving. I realized I was holding my breath. She cleared her throat. I should let you work. But she didn't leave right away. Instead, she reached out and brushed sawdust off my sleeve. Not quickly, not like an apology. Her fingers barely touched the fabric, then pulled back as if she'd burned herself. Sorry, she said, too fast. It's fine, I replied, also too fast. She nodded, stepped away, and the room felt colder without her there. Later, as I packed up, I noticed she'd left a folded note on the workbench. No words, just my name, written carefully, like she'd practiced it once before committing. I held it longer than I needed to. It happened later than either of us planned. The day had slipped sideways. A delivery didn't show. The street out front was blocked for construction. By the time I realized how dark it had gotten, the shop lights were the only thing keeping the room from disappearing entirely. Outside, the sky had that low, heavy look, like it was deciding whether to break. You can leave it, she said, noticing me glance at the window. I don't want you rushing. I'm not, I said. That was mostly true. She hesitated, then nodded. Put the kettle on in the tiny back sink like this was normal. Like we did this all the time. We ate standing up. Soup from mismatched bowls she pulled off a shelf meant for sale. She apologized for it being bland before I'd even tried it. It wasn't. It tasted like something made out of habit, not effort. Thunder rolled somewhere far off. Not dramatic. Just present. You don't have to stay if the weather gets bad, she said. I know. She studied me for a second, then looked away first. That happened more often than I wanted to admit. Her phone buzzed on the counter. She didn't touch it. It buzzed again. Louder this time, like it was offended. She stopped. Took a breath. Picked it up and checked the screen. Whatever she saw made her jaw tighten. She flipped it face down without answering. Everything okay? I asked. Yes, she said too quickly. Then, softer, no. But it's not your problem. I didn't say anything. The rain started then, light at first, tapping against the front windows. The sound filled the space between us. He does this, she said after a moment, surprising both of us. Calls when he thinks I might answer. I kept my eyes on the bowl in my hands. You don't have to explain. I know. She smiled, tired. I just wanted to say it out loud. She leaned back against the counter, crossed her arms, uncrossed them. Her fingers kept finding that scar near her thumb, tracing it like it had a pulse. I don't usually let people stay this late, she said. I can go. I replied immediately. She looked at me then. Really looked. I didn't say that. The rain picked up. Not loud. Steady. Close. We stood there, the space between us shrinking without either of us moving. I could smell the soap on her hands. Something clean. Familiar. My chest felt tight, like I was bracing for something I hadn't earned. She reached for the light switch, missed it, laughed quietly at herself. I stepped closer to help. Too close. My arm brushed hers. She didn't pull away. For a second, her forehead rested against my shoulder. It could have been an accident. It could have been exhaustion. I didn't move. My hand hovered, unsure where it belonged. Her phone buzzed again. She straightened instantly, stepping back like the moment had burned out on contact. I should lock up, she said. I nodded. My hand fell back to my side. As I grabbed my jacket, she touched my wrist, just briefly, like she was checking to see if I was still there. Then she let go. The next time I saw her, nothing happened. That was the problem. No jokes. No accidental touches. She kept her distance like it was a new rule she'd written and decided not to explain. I worked. She organized the front shelves. We passed each other without brushing sleeves. The quiet wasn't thick anymore. It was sharp. By mid-afternoon, I couldn't tell if I was angry or embarrassed. Or just tired of pretending I hadn't noticed the shift? Mara, I said, before I could talk myself out of it. She stopped, a book half slid into place. Didn't turn around. Yes. I wiped my hands on my jeans. The words came out wrong. Did I do something? That made her turn. She looked at me for a long time. Not assessing. Not guarded. Just open. Like she'd been caught without a coat. No, she said. Then, after a beat, I did. I waited. My chest felt hollow, like I'd stepped off something solid without realizing it. She came closer, stopping a careful distance away. Close enough that I could see the faint line between her brows that hadn't been there the first day. Close enough to see how tired she really was. This, she said, gesturing between us, small and uncertain. I don't know what it is. And I don't like not knowing. I swallowed. We don't have to name it. That's the problem, she said quietly. I've spent a long time not naming things. It doesn't end well. The room felt smaller. The hum of the lights louder. I became very aware of where my hands were, how still I was holding myself. I'm not confused about you, I said carefully. I'm confused about what I'm allowed to want. Her breath caught. Just slightly. She looked down at the floor, then back up at me like she was bracing for impact. You shouldn't want this, she said. Not unkind. Not accusing. Just honest. I shouldn't let you. I haven't asked you to, I replied. I know. A pause. That's worse. We stood there, the air between us doing all the talking we weren't. I could feel something pressing at my ribs, a need to step forward or step back. Anything but stay suspended like this. She shook her head once, almost to herself. I hired you to fix a room. That's it. And that's all I've done, I said. But it stopped feeling like just work a while ago. Her eyes softened at that. Not relief. Something sadder. You don't know me, she said. Not the parts that matter. Maybe not, I said. But I see the parts you don't hide. That landed harder than I meant it to. She pressed her lips together, fighting something she didn't let win. I don't get to do this, she said finally. I don't get to start things I can't finish. I nodded, because I understood more than I wanted to. She stepped back then, putting space where it hurt. Her voice dropped, almost a whisper. And the worst part, she said, eyes fixed on mine, is that I don't trust myself to stop. The shift came from a place I wasn't looking. I was sanding the edge of the last shelf when I heard her in the back room, moving things that didn't need moving. Drawers opening, closing, a quiet thud, like something dropped and wasn't picked up right away. You okay? I called. There was a pause long enough that I thought maybe she hadn't heard me. Can you come here a second? She said. Her voice sounded steadier than it should have. She stood by the small desk she kept shoved against the wall. On it lay an envelope, yellowed at the edges, like it had been handled too many times and still not enough. She didn't touch it while I was there. Just stood with her arms folded, fingers tucked under her elbows like she was holding herself together. I was looking for the receipt from the contractor before you, she said. The one I didn't call back. I nodded. Waited. I found this instead. She pushed the envelope toward me, then stopped halfway, as if reconsidering. Pulled it back. Sighed. It's not for you, she said. She rubbed her face with one hand. I need you to know something if you're going to keep standing that close to me. I didn't move. My chest felt tight, expectant in a way that scared me. She finally picked up the envelope and opened it. Inside was a folded letter and a photo that slipped out and landed face up on the desk. It was her. Younger. Softer around the eyes. Standing next to a man about my height. Dark hair. Same crooked posture I see in my reflection when I'm tired. His arm was around her shoulder. Casual. Familiar. The way people hold each other when they think there's time. My husband, she said, not looking at the photo. He died 8 years ago. I'm sorry, I said. It felt inadequate the second it left my mouth. She nodded once. Everyone is. She picked up the photo then, thumb brushing over the edge. He built most of this place. Not well, but with a lot of confidence. That got a small, surprised laugh out of her. It faded quickly. He was younger than me, she added, like she hadn't meant to say it. By a lot. Something shifted in my stomach. Not jealousy. Recognition. I hired you because you were good, she said. I told myself that was the reason. And it was. Mostly. She swallowed. but you stand the way he used to when you're thinking. Like you're already fixing something in your head. I didn't know what to do with that. The photo sat between us, quiet and undeniable. I'm not him, I said gently. I know, she replied. Too fast. I know that. That's not the problem. She folded the letter back into the envelope, hands careful now. The problem is I forgot what it felt like to notice someone without meaning to. The room felt smaller. Not heavy, just fragile. I looked at the photo one more time before she slid it away. When she did, her fingers brushed mine. This time, neither of us pretended it was an accident. She didn't pull back right away. Thank you for not saying anything, she whispered. I nodded. But later, alone, I realized I hadn't stopped thinking about the way his arm rested on her shoulder, and how easily mine might have fit there too. It didn't happen all at once. There was no single moment where everything tipped cleanly into place. Just a series of smaller ones that stopped asking permission. The work finished on a Tuesday. I packed my tools slower than necessary, wiping things that weren't dirty, checking the list twice. She watched from the doorway, arms loose at her sides, like she didn't quite know what to do with them now that there was nothing left to fix. It looks good, she said. Yeah, I replied. It does. The room was different now. Warmer. Usable. The kind of space people sit in and stay. That felt intentional in a way I hadn't planned for. She didn't thank me right away. Instead, she sat on the edge of the new bench, testing it with her weight like she was deciding whether to trust it. I stayed standing. That old habit of waiting to be told where I belonged. You don't have to disappear, she said suddenly. I looked up. I wasn't planning to. She nodded, eyes on her hands. Good. Because I don't think I could handle pretending this didn't matter. That was the closest either of us came to saying anything dangerous. I leaned back against the wall, careful not to crowd her. I'm not asking you for anything, I said. I just don't want to lie about what's already here. She let out a breath I think she'd been holding for weeks. Neither do I. Silence settled in, but it was different now. Not sharp, not fragile, just quiet, like it trusted us to sit in it without breaking. I was afraid, she said after a while. Not of you, of how easy it felt. I smiled small. Me too. She glanced up at that, the corner of her mouth lifting. Then she did something that felt bigger than any confession. She scooted over, making space beside her. I sat, not touching, close enough to feel the warmth through our sleeves. Her knee brushed mine when she shifted. Stayed there. My hand rested on the bench between us, fingers curled slightly, unsure. She noticed. Her hand found mine, not gripping, just present, like she was checking a pulse. We stayed like that for a long time. No urgency, no rush to define what came next. Outside, the streetlights flickered on. Inside, the shop hummed softly, the sound of something finished but not closed. I don't know where this goes, she said. I know, I replied. She leaned her forehead against my shoulder, light, steady. I tilted my head just enough to meet her there. For once, neither of us pulled away. And that was enough. I'm telling this now from a place that finally feels steady. The shop is open later these days. The reading room gets used the way she hoped it would. People sit. They stay. Sometimes they fall asleep with a book on their chest and wake up embarrassed. She never rushes them. I learned that from her. I didn't stop being a carpenter. I just stopped thinking of my work as something temporary. I take my time now. I notice what lasts. What changed wasn't dramatic. No clean line between before and after. Just a quiet reordering of things I thought I understood. I used to think wanting something meant reaching for it. Pushing. Proving. I was wrong. Sometimes wanting is just staying when it would be easier to disappear. Letting something exist without demanding it become anything else. She didn't suddenly become fearless. She still hesitates. Still double-checks locks. Still keeps that envelope in the desk drawer. But she laughs more easily now. The tiredness in her face hasn't vanished, but it's softer. Shared. As for me, I stopped measuring myself against ghosts. I learned that being compared to someone lost isn't an insult. It's a doorway. What matters is not trying to step into someone else's shape. We never made promises out loud. That felt important. What we did instead was smaller and harder. We showed up. We didn't rush the quiet. We let things be awkward without fixing them just to relieve the tension. Sometimes we sit on that bench I built and say nothing. her shoulder against mine, my hand resting where it knows it's allowed. The world keeps moving outside the windows, and we don't feel the need to chase it. Love, I think, isn't always about intensity. Sometimes it's about permission, about being seen without being pulled apart, about choosing not to turn away when something asks you to stay. I don't know how long this chapter lasts. I just know it's real. And that, for once, that feels like enough. If this story made you feel something, let me know in the comments. Would you want more stories like this?